we worked together we worked together to put together some of the Brown versus Boyd events that happen throughout the year. And so what you'll see, who you'll see, would be Dr. Burl New, Dr. Marty Patterson, Sherry Camp, and our Councilwoman Miller. She's the president of the Brown versus Boyd Sumner Legacy Trust Committee. And so Marty works especially with the students of the era. And so you'll find her doing things like what she's doing today, inviting you to homecoming, those kinds of things. So Marty's probably the hardest working woman in show business. We keep her busy. We really do appreciate you coming. So Miss Marty, you go ahead and do your thing.
Well, Dr. Brice, we appreciate you being here and all the endeavors that you have done in your life. We have Sherry Camp, who's an author, genealogist.
Yeah,
Okay, there we go. There we go.
basically, what we want to do, the BBBSLT, that's the Brown Board Sumner Legacy Trust, wants to present you with a copy of my book, African American Topeka.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Wanted to make sure that you show the audience, whoever's taking the pictures.
Sherry Camp made this, wrote this book in
2013.
It's about Topeka's African American community.
Okay, now drop it down a little bit so they can get your face in the picture. And that's all you can get it over there, Mark. Thanks.
I was told the first thing I was supposed to mention, all the firsts that I've done in my life. And it started in 1937. I was the first black to be born at Holy Name Church, which is now Starmont Vale. First black quarterback in Topeka High's history. In the 3 years at Topeka High, quarterback, we didn't lose the game. They kept me back. And this is a long story about that. My senior year, I went out for right halfback. And Bodenhauser called me in the office and says, I want you back to quarterback. So I went back to quarterback. So he set up 4 teams. He gave us 20 plays. And my unit ran up 290 yards. So I knew, and each position voted for the starter in the scrimmage. Our first game was with the Highland Park. And I was in vocational printing. And I got a call to come to the office. E.B. Weaver, out of Bodenhauser, and Dina Boys met with me. And they said to me, we can't start you at quarterback. I said, why? Because that'd be an all-black pack. So, but we would name you defensive captain, and you call all the defense. So, every time you got to be third and long, Brice, go ahead, get it. So I had to play that role. The other first I've done, I was the first adult probation officer in Shawnee County.
Good.
And I was the first line foreman at Hercules Powder. And I quit to go to California and to play semi-pro ball, and I worked a little bit out there. And I come back, I wanted a job in Topeka. So it's like they found out I was a fireman in Topeka here. So I was the first black fireman on the fire department at Hercules. When I was a fireman down there, I met my second wife, Ramona Noches, live for until I had to go back and finish school. The other thing is, when I was in the 5th grade, they held me back a year. And the reason for that, she met with my parents and told my mother and dad that I was too dumb to get out of the 8th grade.
And teacher, principal was?
Ethel Wims. So,
You said you were too what to get out?
dumb. What I found out later on in life, I was dyslexic. And I had to find a way for me to learn. And after I flunked out of Washburn twice, I found a way. Anything I wrote down in my handwriting is like a computer to me. So when I work with youngsters, I try to encourage them, you're not dumb. You just got to find a place for it. Now when I left Hercules, the parole office hired me, and then Dale Imhoff came up with a grant of $150,000 for our halfway house. So I was the first black in Kansas, or the United States, to open up a halfway house for ex-offenders. So the other thing he put on me was, we'll call it Brice House. So if it fails, you be gone. So one thing you do is you tell Clayton Brice that he can't do anything, he's gonna do it. I was raised that way. One thing about, I drove by Brice House last time I was in town, and I wanted to cry. Over there off the Western, it's falling apart. Then I decided to move to Phoenix, Arizona in '74. Best move I ever made. I got my master's degree. I was number 2 in the class. That just made me cry.
God is good.
And I got my doctorate. I lost this eye riding a bicycle. And I hit a bump, threw me 30 feet in the air. When I came to, a spoke went through this eye. When I was doing rehab, I was driving down the street with my wife, and I said, I want to go back to school and get my doctorate. So I've been called every name in the book all through my life. First, I was colored, Negro, the other word, negative, African American. I have been through 41 countries since I got married to that young lady there. In the red.
Would you introduce her, please?
Huh?
Would you introduce her, please?
This is my wife, Lee Brice.
Would you
When I
stand?
met her in 1980, she was quitting school. She was a school teacher. She got her master's in journalism, and she was selling yearbooks. So while we were dating, she got a call, and she was hired as marketing director of credit union. She worked for him for 31 years. After we got married and they were promoting everybody at the credit union, she didn't get promoted. She had masters, and she's one of the few in the credit credit union that had a master. And they told her, she went to the boss and they told her, we can't promote you because you're married to a black man.
Oh, wow.
I had a smile.
That's right.
Because it's the first time she's been on the other side. I'm used to it. Most of us are used to it. I was on the fire department here in 1960 for 5 years. And then I stayed until they decided to integrate. What they did was take 2 blacks from number 3 fire station, which was all black, put us on different shifts, and the reason for that, so we could share the bed. And I remember I was out at 21st Street in Indian something, and stationed out there, and every time I walk in, they'd be shooting pool and leave. I sit down and watch TV, they leave. So one day, I happened to walk in and I says, you know, every time I walk in, you all leave. I was trained to eat smoke. I didn't need those canisters. All we needed was a sponge, we wet it and stuck it in our mouth, we could breathe all the smoke we wanted. And I said, one of these days, that tank's gonna run out, you're gonna need me to pick you up, and I'm gonna walk away. So the first thing came out of their mouth, how many white women you know? I'm married to a black woman and got 2 black children, that's all you need to know. So, in '74, I decided it's time for me to get away from here. And life changed. I think I did a lot of growing too. And it brought me back to when I was going to McKinley, some person told me, if you go through the educational system that we have here now, you will survive anywhere you move. And I kept that in the back of my mind. And the other thing was in the back of my mind was, somebody called me Dr. Brice when I was at McKinley. I wanted to be a doctor. So I have a PhD in psychology. I have worked, I bet you I've changed over 1,000 people's lives. I'm still doing it. I have a case right now that I'm working free. Set of twins. They're 16 years old. They're 6'3", they weigh 318 pounds. Their mother brought them to me because when she was 13, she was one of my clients. So, life is, I want to help people. I know I have surprised some people by having a PhD, because when I left here, I didn't have it. When I graduated from Washburn, I had 2 majors, psychology and criminal justice. Brice House was #1 in the nation for saving people, keeping people from going back to prison. When I moved to Phoenix, I knew nothing about drugs. First job I got was with the Arizona family. I was the only square John they ever hired. The rest of them were ex-junkies. The best education they ever had. They could walk in the room and feel when people were doing drugs. I can't do that. I have to look at behavior, study behavior. which I do a lot of. I go to the airport early so I can study people. See who needs help. There's a lot of.
Some of the pilots need help too. A lot of the pilots need help.
One of my best friends is a female. She was a junkie for 15 years. And when I was working for the Department of Corrections, which I did in Arizona, ended up being a juvenile parole officer, probation officer, parole officer. She came over with me. Yeah. Anybody got any questions?
Well, we could, we'd like Dr. New now to step in as your interviewer.
I was born in 52. I also was dyslexic.
So you were
Had
an
a-
adult when you found out, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, most of them are.
Just like he. I didn't find out until they actually studied it again, and part of my employment decided to study it. I worked for Mall Bell for 30 years, and found out that was the reason, because my learning came differently. And video learning started coming out, audio learning started coming out better. My comprehension skills were 7 times the average individual. But I just didn't learn in the same mechanism as everybody else paying attention to the blackboard and trying to follow paragraphs.
When I was at McKinley, we had spelling tests. You stand up, they give you a word, you spell it. If you misspelled it, you sit down. I was always the first one to sit down. One day they stuck me in the corner and put a dunce hand on my head. Now, I want y'all to know, that didn't affect me. Because I was a damn good athlete. And I knew I was going to be successful. And I will stay eligible long enough. And I didn't care about what type of grade I got as long as I passed.
I just told that last night. As long as I can get out of here,
That's right.
I'll prove it later.
Well, you know, it's not surprising to hear these stories because really, education is just now catching up to a point where they are trying to find ways to diagnose dyslexia and then have different types of teaching techniques in order to address that. But that has gone for many years as undiagnosed, and I'm glad you had the grit to push through, even if it was on the football field, because there are so many young people who are undiagnosed that don't have that type of grit.
Yeah,
Okay.
a long time ago, they didn't mind calling you dumb.
Yeah.
Well, they don't mind it now.
They would do that, and whether it embarrassed you or not. I guess they thought it was a motivating factor to push you forward. My brother was the same way as you. He's an adult before he found out.
Same here.
What's that word mean?
Dyslexic.
Yeah, what's it
You turn things backwards.
Yeah.
Do what?
You turn everything backwards.
Well,
You have problems with math
yeah.
because of crossing, turning things backwards. Same thing with spelling, reading.
It's how your brain interprets what it
Where
takes
did
in
that,
through
where
your
did that
eyes.
definition come from? The same people that oppressed us. That's their definition. Now, you hang out at your teepee over there, your house, on Jefferson.
Right?
That was a hangout. But in today's reality, let me say this sensible without being, let me say this sensible. We had different experiences. You know, when we was coming up, we didn't come up the same way Caucasian people came up.
Okay.
And I always ask this question here, since we're in Brown, is I was 12 years old, 1954, I was 14. I was a sophomore at Topeka High. before 1954, we went to all black school. Monroe, Washington. I went to Washington, McKinley, Sandtown, Buchanan. Why were we separated for the first 6 years? Now, this was before Brown. I'm asking this
Yes.
question. Why were we separated the first 6 years? But when we got to junior high, this was before Brown now. When I got to junior high, when you got to junior high,
Right.
we was so-called desegregated. When we got to the 7th grade junior high, we went to school together.
That's
Now, this
right.
is before Brown. Why did they do that?
But I want you to take a look at something.
I know, but
Buchanan, McKinley, Monroe,
what?
Washington. We had brand new schools compared to some of the white folks. Pierce Edition.
Outdoor toilets,
Yes.
drink out of a cup.
Now, my first wife, brothers went to Pierce Edition,
Yes, additions in the house, yeah.
and I played football with Paul Kemp
Oh,
from Highland Park. He went to Pierce Edition, which is a different way of living.
And we grew up together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we.
And one thing I found out
It's
about
bright.
my dad, all the blacks that didn't have a dad,
They went to your house.
they went to my house,
That's right.
and my dad bought them football shoes,
He sure did.
basketball shoes. When I went to Topeka High School, I felt that my best sport was basketball. You know this, Larry. And all those black guards at Topeka High, from Emmett Thompson on down, when they left Topeka High School, they played behind me. Only one person did it. That's Fred Dumas.
Who?
Fred Dumas.
Yeah.
Fred Lewis?
Fred Dumas.
Dumas. He graduated with me.
Dumas. Oh, Dumas.
Fred Dumas is one of the best basketball players this town has ever produced. I have a problem with Duck. He tried to tell me who Larry Barber was. And as far as I'm concerned, I can outshoot Larry Barber. But Fred Dumas, I never beat him in nothing. Like I never outran Tommy Coleman.
Coleman.
Tommy Coleman. We played for Hughes Conoco. There was Morels, Hornets,
Was it Marlins too?
Hornets, Ragmuffins.
Radford.
Over in South Topeka.
And so one day we lined up at City Park. We're gonna find out who's the fastest black in town. George Whitney, he had a 60-yard dash route. We lined up, take off. I'm outrunning everybody. Les Newman and all those fast guys. I'm outrunning everybody. Get 10 yards from the finish.
Here comes George with
Tommy says, "Thought you had me, didn't you?" I said, "One of these days I'm gonna get you." I've yet to do that. Last night I was put in the Hall of Fame at the Big Eye, and a guy walked up to me. "You know anything about the Comans?" You know, the Comans lived with me.
Everybody did.
Yep.
I wonder if, Lance, you want to say when you lived with them?
Lance. He walked up to me last night, said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "I've saved your ass too many times."
Little boogie. Boogie woogie. Oh, man. His daddy saved me.
Yeah, we have a question from Rebecca.
Dr. Brice, you mentioned that someone told you if you can make it through Topeka, you're prepared for life. What, could you explain that comment some more?
We are able to adjust. Things are so bad at times here. Nothing can beat that, no matter where you go. You know, and we got a guy that's gonna be president, and everybody's raising Cain about what he's gonna do. Hell, I lived through Jim Crow. Nothing could be worse than Jim Crow. And see, one of the things we have to understand, we're more educated now than back in the 30s. And we don't have to tolerate a lot of stuff. And we will stand up. No matter what you do to us, you're going to have to deal with us. As long as you got your heart and you can breathe.
And we understand the game now.
Yes, we do.
We know how to code
Better.
switch better. We know how to code switch. We see it coming. We know how to prepare for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to thank you, Dr. Brice. I've never called you that before. I only called you Clayton.
Yes.
I spent 44 years working for Shawnee County Court Services, where you started out.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up as the director when I retired. So a lot of those people that you work with, I work with their children. And there's nothing like being in the store. I was in Walmart the other day. One of the greeters had a part-time gig. He goes, Sarah. And I looked over and I went, I knew who he was. And he goes, I just want to tell you, I'm 2 credits away from a master's degree. I took that boy to BIS.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I worked there.
Yeah, I know you did.
I
know
worked
you
out
did.
there.
So you have not only left a legacy in the sports arena, but also for those of us that do corrections and counseling and work with kids.
That's saying something.
I appreciate it.
That's good.
I
That's
really
good.
There's one thing that I developed in counseling, and it's called the hot seat. When I opened up Brice's house, I had no experience. And I had to find a way to get these guys jobs. At Brice's house, you were in a group meeting 5 nights a week. And I ran the meetings. So what I would do, I bought a red chair and stick it in the center of the floor. And the people around you, you paid, I start charging, if you didn't work in 10 days, everybody in the house had to pay for part of your rent. And then I put that person on the hot seat. And I sit back and listen to, let them do what they had to do for them. And when I felt that the defenses was down, I take over. And every time I took over, 2 days later, he's working, and his way through. But my staff that I trained, I turn them over to, they all had a counselor. I made sure they go to the counselor after I finished with them.
Dr. Brice,
Yes, ma'am.
I remember you telling me something about your father's anger may have made you, or something like that. He had an anger.
My
What
dad,
led you to believe it was probably what motivated you?
my dad has a temper. Clayton Brice has a temper. Every Brice I know of has a temper. I've had 3 sisters. They all had tempers
Amen.
and nasty mouths. So I had a cousin, a niece. She walked up to me after I was married to Lee. She said, "You don't know nothing about black women." I said, "I was raised by black women." My sisters were black, and I was married to 2 of them. Don't tell me I don't know.
How did your father's,
Hmm?
how did your father affect you, and how you
Oh,
navigated through life behind?
if you talk to me long enough, you know that a lot of things I say came from Clayton Brice. My dad ran that house. Is that right, Larry? Fidel? Is that right? Clayton
Yeah,
Franklin
yeah, he
ran He was in his 3rd year of college when he got my mother pregnant. And he never went back to school. And he couldn't hold a job for a while. Now, there's a bunch of us sitting in this room, picking potatoes and stuff. We all
Raise your
pick
hand if you
potatoes.
pick potatoes and
Raise your hand, Richard.
If what?
Waters.
Pick potatoes.
Pick potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why we pick potatoes
Yeah.
is because I use that money to buy my clothes.
That's where you sure right, brother.
And before we start picking potatoes, I remember going to school with cardboard in the bottom of my shoes and holes into my jeans.
What?
And anybody here play the dozens?
Who? Oh, yeah. That was what was up, man.
And you couldn't, you get in this circle and they get talking about your mama, daddy, and you,
what?
and you couldn't fight.
Oh, yeah.
So you couldn't beat up 8 or 9 people. You had to learn how to play the dozens better than them. That's an education in mine that helped me survive as long as I have. Being able to adjust and go after somebody without using my fists. Still with my mouth. Now, I got one thing to say, then that person right there, Adele, and if it hadn't been for Hughes Conoco, we'd stop playing basketball after we left Topeka High. I played with JoJo White. I played against Bob Boozer. I'm talking about these were All-American basketball players. Bad News Barnes,
Al Corral.
Al Grau. The best basketball player I haven't mentioned yet, Gene Legette Wilson. Yeah, he's the first black to play in the Big 12.
Played for K-State.
He played for K-State. And he can jump out of this gym. He's about 6 feet tall, and he'd take that ball, honk it in his arm, elbow, and we jump up and dunk it.
Dunking before it was official, huh?
Yeah, yes it was. And he jumped center for K-State.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So you had talked about being named the president of the Black
Phoenix Black
Coalition
Coalition.
in Phoenix.
Yes.
So if you were able to have 450 white allies, what would you recommend to us today as we're moving into some kind of unknown social and possibly political territory as far as how we bridge cultures or skin color groups to create places where allies feel comfortable supporting each other, not just black?
Tell you the truth, with me, I don't care what position or who you put around me, I'm gonna make an input. And I study people enough to find out their weaknesses. And I share that. I don't care what color you are, we got to work together.
Yes. That's right.
I don't care where you came from, we still got to work together if we want to be successful. And I want to be successful. Now, I have in my lifetime driven Mercedes, Cadillacs. I had all the cars I want. I just bought a car the other day, and it was a 2008 VW convertible. That's my car now. Because I don't need all that speed. I got one eye, so. And the other thing I want to tell you that nobody, very few of you know, in what year was it I had that wreck?
Wreck, year after I retired, 2015.
2015. I was in the hospital for 3 months. I was came home, I was in a wheelchair. Couldn't walk, couldn't climb steps, couldn't wipe my butt. But I said to myself, I'm going to walk. So one day my wife went to somewhere, she came back, I climbed them damn steps. I lived in a two-story house. Because I had to do something to get out of it, sitting around. That's what I mean. We have this inside us. Now we talk about we only use 10% of our brain. We got a whole lot of brain there, but we're not using it. And we gotta find a way to start using it. And we gotta learn to trust. My dad told me years ago, I trust a thief better than I would a liar. Now, my PhD, I'm specialized in substance abuse, something I didn't know anything about. Those are the greatest manipulators in the world. And if you can handle a substance abuser who's strung out, you can handle anything. And if you think that they can't lie, just be there 5 minutes. They have you helping them out, everything else. But it's all here. It's all wanted. I want it. And you do too. Sometimes we get stuck on our circumstances. There's always a way out. Yes, sir.
I'd like to go back to the